Nice to see everybody. Hope you have a good Easter weekend, and hopefully this wind will calm down a little bit. But thank you for allowing me to pray with you, and God bless you guys tonight. So God, we come before you this evening, and we bow our hearts to you, and we recognize our deep need for your Spirit to guide us in all your ways. So be with these men and women tonight, and impart to them wisdom and knowledge as they lead this Livingston County and its people. We acknowledge that we are not self-sufficient nor self-made, but that we are totally dependent upon you, the living God, the creator of the universe. You are the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end. You know what we have need of even before we ask, but still tonight we ask. Help us. Help us as a nation and bless our president. Strengthen Illinois and touch our governor. Bless all the farmers around the world, and especially in this great state of Illinois. Bring peace to the Ukraine and all the Eastern Europe, and meet the needs of all the refugees. Sustain individuals and families and communities and businesses as we navigate through this uncertain times of crazy weather patterns, foreign wars, gas prices, overall evil and violence, sickness and inflation. Even in the midst of all these rising circumstances, we stand together as one in hopes of a brighter future because of the rising of your Son, Jesus Christ, that we will celebrate on this Sunday, Easter Sunday. For the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead lives in us and has given us power. So, from our lips to your ears, let it be so. Amen. God bless each one of you.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Have a happy Easter yourself. Mr. Blacker, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, Christy. Roll call, please.
Vietti,
Here.
Bunning,
Present.
Kirkton,
Present.
Manker, Barrickman,
Here.
Slagle, Fannin,
Present.
Steichen, Schaefer,
Here.
Menninga, Kestner, Welch,
Present.
Carly,
Present.
Weller, Ritter,
Present.
Mays,
Here.
Lovell,
Present.
Ambrose,
Here.
Blackard,
Present.
Herring,
Here.
Bitstam,
Here.
Arbogast, Wilkie, Runyon.
Here.
We have quorum. I ask that you look at the agenda here. Any additions or corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve.
It's been moved by Ritter. Is there a second? Seconded by Carly. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Christie handed out the March 17th regular monthly board minutes. Any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
It's been
Second.
moved by Fannin, seconded by Earring. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. As you can see, we have no presentations or appointments. Moving down to the consent agenda for the approval of bills and the appointments of Martin Wood, Dwayne Meister, and Marlon Donnelly. Do I have such a motion? Been moved by Wilkie, seconded by Ritter. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Vietti, Bunning,
Yes.
Kirkton,
Yes.
Manker,
Yes.
Barrickman,
Yes.
Fannin,
Yes.
Steichen, Schaefer,
Yes.
Menninga, Kestner, Welch,
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
Weller, Ritter,
Yes.
Mays,
Yes.
Lovell,
Yes.
Ambrose,
Yes.
Blackard,
Yes.
Herring,
Yes.
Bitstam,
Yes.
Arbogast, Wilkie,
Yes.
and Runyon.
Yes.
Very well, moving down to the action agenda for committee reports, begin with Highway. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, we've got a resolution for amended appropriating Rebuild Illinois money. We also got the quarterly report, and Clay is at the podium. If we've got any questions on them.
Questions for Clay? You want to move these as one motion level?
Yes, one motion.
Been moved by Level, is there a second?
Second by Blackard.
Seconded by Blackard. Discussion. Roll call, please, Christie.
Vieti. Bunning.
Yes.
Kirkton.
Yes.
Manker.
Yes.
Barrickman.
Yes.
Fannin.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Welch.
Yes.
Carly.
Yes.
Weller.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Mays. Lovell.
Yes.
Ambrose.
Yes.
Blackard.
Yes.
Ayring.
Yes.
Pittston.
Yes.
Wilkie.
Yes.
And Runyon.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Clay is going to go into a little bit on the building progress right now, and the report is needed. So Clay,
Okay.
it's yours.
So we've received final plans and specifications this week. We've been working on just a few tweaks left with that. We intend to advertise for letting April 23rd, available for bidders the following week. Finalize with city variances on 5/16, hopefully. Pre-bid meeting on 5/17 with those bidders that have pulled proposals. Open the bids on 6/2, and then meet with the highway committee to go over those bids on 6/7 and present to the full board on 6/16. All of this is providing that we get through the variances with the city. We don't have to extend anything, but that's the schedule. I think it's been known that we have some prints that are available here with about 5 pages of the plans at full size. If you'd like to see more, I will have the full set out of the highway department, if anybody wants to see all 44 pages of it. So, if there's any questions?
Questions for Clay?
Do we foresee any issues with variances from the city?
At this time, no.
Good.
They had to send it out to area residents, and then they have to hold a zoning meeting where they'll discuss it, and then they'll have the council meeting where they, from the recommendation of zoning. And we will be attending both of those meetings, so hopefully all questions will be taken care of.
Good.
Any other questions for Clay?
I would think that when he does get the final set of plans, that we can notify the board members that they are out there, and they can stop by and to be on the table out there. So
Super.
that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Clay.
Thank you.
Moving on to public property, Mr. Vistum, we will do these separately. We will do 2 motions, 2 seconds. So, Mr. Vistum, you have the floor. Is your mic on, John?
First one we have is a low bid for the demolition of the health building. Fowler Enterprises is the company that had the low bid. The board recommended we go with them, moved it on to us, so I will make a motion to accept that resolution.
Been moved by Vistum. Is there a second? Seconded by Ayring. Discussion? This requires roll call. Christie?
Vieti.
I'm sorry.
I did have one quick question. When we talked low bid, I apologize, Mr. Chairman, I didn't speak up enough. When we talked low bid, what was the low bid? Just to remind me, please.
$181,250.
Outstanding. So, as I understand it, that's just for demolition, so the asbestos, all the abatement has already been done, or we're still working?
The what now?
The asbestos abatement,
They're working on that, would you say about another week or two on that?
No, they're scheduled through the end of May
Through the end of
for
May.
asbestos abatement. They
So
should be
far-
done before
So far,
that,
they're
but
on schedule with that.
all right, so, and none of the demolition will start until that's complete,
June
correct?
1st is when they're scheduled to start, beginning of June.
Outstanding. Okay,
And does this fall price-wise in within what we estimated and what we had budgeted for it, or?
Less than.
This one does. It was the asbestos abatement that was significantly over. Thankfully, we had a lot of funds left over within the overall budget from other categories still to pay for it. But yeah, we're slightly over on this, not this particular portion, but it was the asbestos abatement.
so actually, the bid for demolition is under kind of what we were envisioning, correct?
Correct.
That's actually good news. Okay,
Yes, it is.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions or concerns? We do have a motion and a second. Moving to roll call. Christie?
Vieti.
Yes.
Bunning.
Yes.
Kirkton.
Yes.
Manker.
Yes.
Berkman.
Yes.
Fannin.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Welch.
Yes.
Carly.
Yes.
Weller.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Mays.
Yes.
Lovell.
Yes.
Ambrose.
Yes.
Blackard.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
Bittstum.
Yes.
Wilkie.
Yes.
Runyon.
Yes.
Okay, moving on, John. B?
B is the personal use of public property. We've had a family wanted to use the courthouse for a wedding. As you can actually, we spent quite a bit of time on this. And there has been weddings in the courthouse before, to my understanding, but usually that's when it was used and the judge did it, so there was somebody here from the courthouse to oversee it. So we asked Alina to investigate it. She got a hold of us, I don't remember what city ordinance she had, that Cheney or something. Anyhow, she come up with a resolution or some, I guess I call it a resolution or a contract or an agreement that we thought we should present before the board to save us and some other people down the road if this gets to be a habit. Everybody wanting to use it. I think it was in there for everybody to look at, see what they thought between Alina and Mr. Redneck, and they've gone over, I think, to come up with this. So I would like to make a motion to approve this.
It's been moved by John. Is there a second? Seconded by Ritter. Discussion?
Yeah, I got a lot of questions.
Me too.
So, hours, are we gonna open this up to any hours, anytime? Or is this gonna be limited? There's no
I think you addressed that in
indication.
there somewhere, didn't you, Alina? I thought I seen that.
No.
Well, if.
This gonna
somewhere-
include weekends? Because one question leads into another question.
Well, and we talked about this at the thing, that we were worried about security, and I thought it said in here that if nobody was here, they had to pay for security and something else in there. I thought I seen that, but I don't see it right now, or remember where I seen that.
It says that they can hire, minimum support, if deemed necessary by the county, licensee agrees to employ at its sole cost expenses and liabilities, such minimum security, admission, and support personnel is deemed necessary, and who deems what's necessary to assure the safety of the event patrons and premises. Who deems what's necessary? Who's accountable for that?
I would say that would be up to us, I would think, wouldn't it?
Which leads into another question. So who's the contact person? Who's the one that's going to be ultimately making these decisions? And I'm going to assume that every one of these is going to come before the county board.
I'm assuming you would have to.
Doesn't say, that's why I'm asking.
I'd like to say something since I'm on that committee, and I originally was in favor of this. I thought it wouldn't be a bad idea, and, you know, residents of the county, they have the right to use the courthouse, da-da-da-da-da-da. But the more I thought about it, and I've looked at it, and I think there's a lot of extra work involved here, and for our personnel to figure all these things out, as Mr. Fann's raised some issues already. And then the supervision factor, where's that gonna come from? I think we just open the door, in this day and age with some of the groups that we have out there. I think we open the door for, some real challenging moments. So I'm gonna, change my original thoughts. I originally was in favor of this. Now I'm not in favor of it. It's my opinion.
Thank you, Doc. Kirkton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got the same question, and I just want to expound on what Mr. Fannin asked. Who from the county, our organization, is going to be here to supervise and is responsible for this building? And we're paying them to be here. It's not out of the goodness of their heart, correct? I mean, that's my assumption, Marty, right?
I think in the contract, it would say that it would be the responsible party would then have to pay for whatever that cost is. That's my understanding. But still,
I didn't get
who's
that
making
when
the
I read it.
determination of who's gonna be the person to be here? What are they gonna watch? Are they gonna be watching the elevator? Because that elevator goes down to the basement. Is that gonna be watched? Who's gonna clear the building when the event is over? What if the event goes over? Then it's a lot of time. Who's gonna ensure that the building's cleared out? Who's gonna make sure that, there's,
So we're not
Nobody
limited to a
left.
certain floor? I mean, they can use either floor. We're not going to limit them to, okay, you can only use this portion of the.
but you can tell them that, but that doesn't stop people from wandering. That's my point.
That's true.
And these are all things that got brought up at our committee meeting, and we got this far, and that's why we brought it here, for all of us to discuss that, just as we are now. And, I'm glad that we have these questions.
Gerald, I got you,
I'd like
Jim.
to also comment, I'm on the property committee, I was all for it to begin with, but you know, after weeks went by and 2 weeks went by and we adapted the rules here, and it's exactly right. Who's gonna patrol these people? Who's gonna watch to make sure they come to the right floor, like Mr. Phelan said here? I mean, we have no control over what goes on, and they're gonna do this at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Our employees, this is a place of business, I got to thinking more and more all the time. It used to be a courthouse. So I'm gonna be honest with you people, I'm gonna vote no against this time, because I think more about this all the time, that we're opening up something that we don't wanna take responsibility for.
Jim?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I totally agree with what Mr. Fannin states. I do believe that we should be able to, that the people should be able to use it. But the way this agreement is written right now, I would recommend that we send it back to the committee and really think through this to move it forward so that we can answer some of these questions that have come up. I do not think that this is restrictive enough or specified enough in order for us to be able to move forward.
Jim, I'll tell you what, we've got a motion and a second on the floor. We'll see what this vote does, and then we'll take you into account. I'm sorry, Runyon.
Yeah, I'm actually on the committee too, and this came up a month ago, and I was against it from the very beginning. I was under the weather this past month, so I didn't make the committee meeting this past month. But I think when it was described to us a month ago, it was going to be during working hours. And while I agree with what Jim said, it is a public building and the public should have the right to use it, but within reason. And not only being a public building, it's also an office building. It's places of business. We have different offices up on this floor. As my understanding, it was this room they were wanting to use. Mm-hmm. And we got Chuck's department over there. We got the bookkeeping department over there. We got Alina's office here, that we're conducting business. And you talk about a situation like this, noise level could be very disrupting to the people that are working around here. So I just think this is opening a can of worms that we don't need to open. So I'm going to be voting against it as well.
Ritter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe this is a public building and it's the people's building. That said, there's been a lot of great discussion here this evening, all valid points. And so originally when I looked at this, I thought it was a great idea. But I also agree with Mr. Blackard that if we are to move forward, a lot of more discussion. And so I would like to withdraw my second on that. Thank you.
Gina?
I'm sorry to make this go longer, but Have we looked into the liability insurance?
There's a part in the agreement that they would have to
They
get,
would pay the difference?
no, they have to get insurance,
Their own insurance?
event insurance
But
that
we
would
still
cover
would
that.
have to have,
Well, I mean, I still had more items.
yeah.
So if you guys are still thinking about it, you need to think, who's going to inspect for damage? Who inspects this building, the whole building, the electrical, all that, for damage, and who's responsible for that? Who's responsible for making the decision on the deposit, whether or not they get their deposit back? Who's responsible for that? Are we throwing this all back into this office? Is that what we're doing?
So we have had our second of the motion withdrawn. Is there anybody willing to second John's motion? Going once? Going twice? Motion is killed for lack of second. John?
Okay, the only other thing we have to come before us right now is, because we already talked about, the update on the asbestos is so far on schedule. And as long as that keeps up, demolition should be on schedule. Last time I talked to Jackie, things seem to be going pretty good in the new building. A few little things here and there, but nothing major. Outside of that, that ends my report.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so Mr. Blackard had said something about sending it back to committee to be looked at. And I'm going backward, of course, is that something that if Mr. Blackard wants the exploration, and Mr. Fannin, I more than respect what you're saying, and again, the reason why I removed my second was because of that. Not just you, everybody, right? But if Mr. Blackard is feeling that it should go back to committee for further consideration because this is the house of the people of our county, is that something that he needs to make a motion to do? Or is that, where does that go? Or is it just, we'll see how it goes?
It would be under my understanding that it would just be put back on the agenda. Is that correct? If so warranted?
Yes.
Bob?
Should that be the case, time is of the essence, because if I'm not mistaken, that date we're looking at for these people is July 22nd. They are planning a wedding, and that's right around the corner as far as weddings go. So this would have to be done very quickly. That's a lot to get done in a short amount of time if we're going to address all these issues.
Yeah, that's.
Hold on, Bill. Alina, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I'm gonna make the same request that I made at the last meeting, and that is if there's no intention of moving forward with any type of agreement, I had asked that the property committee not have me go through the process of drafting the agreement if it's not going to be approved. I think in my email to board members, as I distributed the email, I had mentioned that there are a lot of questions and concerns. Those are not going to be able to be incorporated into an agreement. So I'm asking you, if there's no intent to do this, please don't send it back to the committee asking me to revise an agreement that's not going to be approved regardless.
And I would say that much, if not all of the discussion that took place here tonight was in against having this. So I think that's kind of where we're at. Bill, I apologize. I saw your.
Sorry, I was just wondering if this was for the wedding reception or everything here, or is it just for the wedding part of it? Or
It was my understanding when they called me that it was just for a wedding, no reception, just
so they would,
ceremony.
not saying I'm okay with this, but they would only be in here for an hour? Here?
It was supposed to be half an hour in and out.
It's supposed to what?
Supposedly half an hour in and out.
Oh, okay. We know how that goes.
Well, and that's how this all got started,
Oh,
even in
okay.
our committee. You know, can you control the people that come in there? I I mean, it got brought up, and, you know, a guest could come drunk. I mean, there's a lot of things that you have no control over. And that's, we went as far as we could, and we decided to bring it before the committee to see what
Oh,
they
that's
felt. This way,
I was just curious if it was
yeah, but
for
to me,
both.
this way, none of this is on anybody's one back. We all made the decision together, I guess I want to say.
Gerald?
Yeah, I'd like to comment what Lena said. We did agree that if this did not pass tonight, this would not happen. And as a property committee person, I'm gonna tell you right now, we spent probably a half hour in the last 2 committee meetings, each one of them, discussing this and could never come up with an answer. That's why it came to you folks. And I'd like to just put it to rest and let it go. Thank you.
Common consent? Okay. Moving on to finance. Mr. Schaefer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 items. One, both out of the Treasurer's Office. A resolution for you regarding a single bidder rule. And what this, make a long story short, it's to prevent collusion with kind of, there'd been a practice, and it really relates to a particular entity, of making straw bidders that really wasn't constructive and led to problems. I noticed I told Nikki I had just looked this up on the internet, and there's some other Illinois counties who've done the same thing, and actually the same entity was trying to perform the same. It amounts to collusion, and this takes that out of the mix. So I'd like to run a legitimate auction, and this helps toward that legitimacy, and I motion that be approved.
Been moved by Schaefer. Is there a second? Fannin. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Vieti. Bunning.
Yes.
Kirkton.
Yes.
Manker.
Yes.
Berkman.
Yes.
Fannin.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Welch.
Yes.
Carly.
Yes.
Weller.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Mays.
Yes.
Lovell.
Yes.
Ambrose.
Yes.
Blackard.
Yes.
Herring.
Yes.
Fitstum.
Yes.
Wilkie.
Yes.
Runyon.
Yes.
And secondly, we've had a real backing off of property taxes redeemed at sale, but we did have one here recently. This was on a trailer. I think we get about $400 out of this, Nikki, or something like that. Okay. So, at any rate, part of the process is that we approve these, so I would motion we approve.
Been moved by Schaefer. Is there a second? Seconded by Manker. Discussion? Roll call, please, Christie.
Vieti. Bunning.
Yes.
Kirkton.
Yes.
Manker.
Yes.
Berkman.
Yes.
Fannin.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yep.
Welch.
Yes.
Carly.
Yes.
Weller.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Mays.
Yes.
Lovell.
Yes.
Ambrose.
Yes.
Blackard.
Yes.
Herring.
Yes.
Fitstum.
Yes.
Wilkie. And Runyon.
Yes.
Thank you one and all, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Tim. Sheriff, jail, and license. Mr. Carly?
Yes, we have 2 action items tonight. The first one, I think we can probably do them together, I think, can't we? One deals with liquor license renewal for the year, and the other deals with the change of officers at the Sportsman's Club. Christie, do you want to address that, please? Can you do that, or Elena?
Sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay, the first thing was the liquor license and mobile home annual renewal applications. That's every year. They've filled out all of their applications. We had a few things we were waiting for when the committee met. And since that time, they have submitted all the information that we needed. The state's attorney has reviewed all of them and approved it. That's about all that I can tell. There was also 2 mobile home parks. One's over at Streeter, Creek Ridge. That doesn't sound right. I can't remember. No, it's one over at Streeter, and then the other one is here in town. So they were all okay too. Carriage Lane Estates it was. So the applications were fine. The other thing was there was a change in personnel in the directors for the Pontiac Sportsman's Club, and they are supposed to notify of us, so it's just a formality. They're in good standing the way they are, and have applied for a renewal of their license too, so everything looks good to go.
Can I make a motion to accept the change of officers and the annual renewal of these licenses? Is there a second?
Seconded by Jack. We've got a motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question that goes with our meeting that we have, and maybe you're going to address it. We had clarification. Okay, thank you.
Under report as needed, I'm going to address a question or two that we had about a raffle license for the FALS. That's, I think it's the Fairbury American Legion Speedway. State's attorney looked into it, checked it all out. Everything is fine, so that is okay. I would also like to state that there's, in my opinion, there's been a smooth transition at the Sheriff's Department, and Sheriff Hamilton, Captain Gregor are doing a great job with the leadership over there. Things are running well. Jail and Superintendent Draper is also doing a commendable job. So the Sheriff's Department is running smoothly with the changes that we had this past month. That's my report.
Thank you, Doc. Moving on to Ag and Zoning. I don't have any action items to bring forth to you, but would like to commend everybody that showed up a couple Saturdays ago to help with the electronic recycling that took place at the old Kmart parking lot. Wound up just shy of 4 full semis that were retrieved from residents in Livingston County. So some of us stayed drier than others. We had a little bit of rain that come in about 11:15. Kind of was more of a hassle than it was a burden, but if you're out in it, you got wet. So just publicly thanking everybody that not only come to help, but also brought their electronic recycling hardware to us. It was another great event that we're cleaning the county up. So that's all I've got. Moving on to information and technology. Mr. Fannin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did not meet, so I have no report at this time.
Very well. Rules, legislative, veterans, and community services, still a mouthful, Kirkton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No action items by my committee tonight. We did receive a report from Tara Graves, who runs the LACC, the Livingston Area Career Center. We also had a report from Regional Office of Education by Mr. Mark Jontry. And of course, we had our Veterans Assistance Report from Superintendent Tom Bailey. And I believe our last committee meeting was Tom Bailey's last meeting. Can you expand on it, please, Mr. Blackard?
Yes, that should be his last meeting. Right now, they have hired a new superintendent. He cannot start until June 15th. So Tom is going to be around for a couple more months. But with that being said, they have hired a new superintendent. He was a former colonel with the Illinois National Guard.
So we know he's squared away because he's a former colonel.
Not as good as a Marine, but we'll take it.
I mean, he wasn't a drill sergeant, but.
It took a long way for him to get there, but he knew exactly what his point was at the beginning.
And they've also hired a new secretary for the VAC as well.
Yes, and I believe they did hire a new secretary. She is working out wonderful. In fact, back when Tom first started, they did not have a full-time secretary. They had a superintendent and an assistant superintendent or vice superintendent. And in fact, the VAC voted last week to go that route again. So the quote-unquote secretary will be the assistant superintendent.
And Mr. Chairman, once those new individuals are on board with the VAC, they're going to come to our committee, and we'll get them to come to the full board so the full board can meet them as well. And that concludes my report.
Great news. Glad to see the positions are filled. Thank you, Mr. Kirkton. There was no executive committee last week in Kathy's absence. So moving on to public comment. As you make your, you first or, okay.
Good.
You bet. Name, address.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Joe Vaughn, representing IHR. And if you remember about a year ago, it was April 5th, IHR presented in front of the Public Property Committee that we were going to vacate our building and move to the Custer Avenue building. We've done that. I'm pleased that the health department's moved in. Everything's going well. The only thing I'm asking is to get back on the board's radar because I've never received an answer or any discussion whatsoever about the compensation with the building that we left behind. So if you remember, that was a building that IHR, we built several different additions to that building. You're now leasing it to two different entities, receiving rent money from that. And my original ask was to have some compensation back to IHR for the fact that we left that. Because in our opinion, we were going to stay there. It's in the 11th hour that it was decided that that wasn't going to work. We had to move on to something else, but the building stays. You guys chose to keep it, which is great. It's being used, but there's been no information back to me, and I'm just trying to figure out what's the next step for IHR to have a discussion about whether we can receive some compensation for our building.
We will take it under advisement. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Carly?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would like to take a few moments here to do some clarification and address some things that were stated at the last board meeting, which I wasn't able to attend, and then were placed in the press. And as we know today, there's a lot of times misinformation in the media, and so I would just like to clarify some things. I want to read two paragraphs from the paper, and then we'll kind of summarize what I'm addressing. This was on March 19th, 2022, and the title is Hamilton Named Interim Sheriff. The first two paragraphs don't talk about the sheriff too much. They say maybe it was a coincidence and maybe there was a reason, but the Sheriff, Jail, and License Committee Chairman and Vice Chairman were absent from Thursday's Livingston County Board meeting at the historic Livingston County Courthouse. The absences were made obvious right before the naming of the interim sheriff was made. District 2 Representative Jason Bunning pointed out when he spoke up regarding the naming of the interim sheriff because he said the matter should be tabled since the SJL committee chair, Jim Carley, and the vice chair, Bob Weller, were absent. I want to tell you my absence was due to a family vacation that we had planned a year ahead of time. I was in the great state of Florida at the time and did not intend to come back for the vote. I knew how it was going to go. I didn't think my vote was necessary. So I wasn't leaving my family and coming home for that vote. So that's where I was. I think I had told many of the board members, maybe not all, that I was going to be gone, and that's where I'd be. Mr. Weller, he is here and can speak for himself. I'll just kind of paraphrase the issue. He was unable to attend the meeting. He had not been feeling well for a couple weeks, and that particular night he ended up in the ER in Morris and later went to Loyola University, and since then has had quite a bit of a medical adventure. I don't want to address that. So both of us were not here for those reasons. It had nothing to do with anything else. Everybody knew on the board, well, I'm going to put it this way. Ourselves and 21 board members that we had basically addressed the issue with, all but one, knew where we stood on this issue, and we were in total agreement with what was done. And again, I just want to clarify why we weren't at the meeting. So you're right, a year ago I didn't know we were going to be doing that, so I probably would have changed my vacation. No way. But anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carley.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to thank those of you who reached out and sent your well wishes and your prayers. I appreciate it. Because I'm still here. And lucky. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Weller. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn by Fannin.
Been moved by Fannin, seconded by Ritter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Happy